اتفاق خير واللي بيقتل المدنيين مجرم.
Good afternoon on Sunday, March 2nd. I'm Nina Naufal, and these are today's headlines. Ukraine says it is calling up all military reservists after President Vladimir Putin resists Western pressure to pull troops back. Hezbollah takes a swipe at President Michel Sleiman, saying the Lebanese leader requires specialized care. And Maronite Patriarch Shaddai calls on rival political parties to swiftly draft the cabinet's ministerial policy statement. Ukraine says it would call up all military reservists after President Vladimir Putin's threat to invade Russia's neighbor drew a blunt response from U.S. President Barack Obama. The stark escalation in what threatens to become the worst crisis in relations since the Cold War came as pro-Russian forces seized control of key government buildings and airports in the strategic Crimean Peninsula. Russia's parliament voted on Saturday to allow troops to deploy in its western neighbor, a move branded by Obama as a violation of Ukrainian sovereignty. Witnesses said a group of Russian soldiers had also blocked about 400 Ukrainian Marines at their base in the eastern Crimean port city of Feodosia and were calling on them to surrender and give up their arms. Obama told Putin in what the White House described as a charged 90-minute call that Russia's reported deployment of troops outside the bases of Moscow, leases from Kiev and Crimea, had already broken international law.
I have convened the North Atlantic Council today because of Russia's military action in Ukraine and because of President Putin's threats against this sovereign nation. What Russia is doing now in Ukraine violates the principles of the United Nations Charter. It threatens peace and security in Europe. Russia must stop its military activities and its threats. We urge all parties to urgently continue all efforts to move away from this dangerous situation. In particular, I call on Russia to de-escalate tensions.
Where Hezbollah is supposedly seeking to prevent any attempts to renew the tenure of President Michel Sleiman by targeting him directly in its statements, according to media reports. On Saturday, Hezbollah and the president were at loggerheads over Sleiman's recent statement concerning the cabinet's policy statement. Sleiman said on Friday that the land, people, and common values formed the country's permanent equation, describing that the people-army resistance equation as wood. Hezbollah slammed on Saturday Sleiman's comments, accusing him of not being able to differentiate between what's golden and what's wooden. The party said that Ba'abda Palace has come to require specialized care. Sleiman replied via Twitter saying that what Ba'abda Palace really needed is acknowledging the unanimous consensus over the Ba'abda Declaration that was reached inside its premises. Maronite Patriarch Shaddai is calling on political archfoes to swiftly draft the cabinet's ministerial policy statement and excluding the main points of contention. The policy statement should not resolve the controversial points, but merely include the constitutional principles and the projects that the cabinet considers a priority, Rai said in his sermon during a mass he celebrated in Kirke. He pointed out that the States General's policy cannot be included in the policy statement, which should come in the discourse of the cabinet's session based on the Constitution and national principles. Rai also noted that the cabinet's tenure is relatively short as it is tasked with carrying out the presidential elections. On Friday, the committee drafting the ministerial policy statement failed anew to reach an agreement on the clause related to resisting Israel as the March 14 forces insisted on the state's authority over everything else. Israel's diplomatic missions and embassies across the world went on alert this morning following a raid by the Jewish state on a Hezbollah post in the border town of Junta. Israel has reportedly raised security levels at its embassies and diplomatic missions around the world, fearing a possible retaliation by Hezbollah. Israeli jets on Monday struck a Hezbollah position near the Lebanese-Syrian border, and the Hezbollah party acknowledged the strike on Wednesday, saying that it targeted a position near the Junta region in the Bekaa. It vowed that it will choose the appropriate time and place to retaliate to the attack. Now, the Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights activist group said Israeli warplanes bombed a rocket launcher for Hezbollah fighters near the villages of Janta and Yahfufa along the border. Lebanon's ambassador to the United Nations, Nawaf Salam, filed a complaint to the United Nations Security Council over the raid at Foreign Minister Gibran Basil's request. In other local news, the Lebanese army are detaining a wanted man after cornering the suspect in a neighborhood of the northern city of Tripoli. The army opened fire in the air and launched a mortar bomb to prevent the suspect from fleeing the Tripoli neighborhood of Mankoubin, where he was later detained. The army briefly blocked the roads leading to the neighborhood, but reopened them shortly after detaining the man. Now, media reports say that some residents had tried to help the suspect escape. But in a separate incident on Saturday evening, 2 men were killed in a personal dispute between members of the Khalaf and Aswad families. Khudr Khalaf, one of the victims, was killed immediately in the shootout at the city's vegetables market located in Bebet Tabeni neighborhood. Deep Khalaf, the second fatality, died at a local hospital from wounds he suffered in the shootout. And a third man, identified as Khalid Batata, was slightly wounded in the incident. Coming up next, Hollywood's male stars prep for a face-off for one of cinema's most coveted prize. We're talking Oscars. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Future TV. Attacks in predominantly Sunni Arab areas north and west of Baghdad in Iraq have killed 6 people, all members of the security forces. This is the latest in a year-long surge in bloodshed. Less than 2 months before parliamentary elections, Iraq is mired in its worst violence since 2008, when it was emerging from a period of brutal sectarian bloodletting that killed tens of thousands of people. The spike has been driven by widespread discontent among the minority Sunni Arab community, which complains of being marginalized and unfairly targeted with heavy-handed security measures, and by the civil war in neighboring Syria. Efforts by authorities in recent months to curb the bloodshed, mainly military operations and concessions that fall short of Sunni demands, have had little effect. More than 700 people were killed in February, according to separate tolls compiled by AFP, the UN mission to Iraq, and the Iraqi government. Government airstrikes in a small northwestern town on the border with Turkey have killed at least 13 people, according to Syrian activists. These strikes hit residential buildings in the town of Kfar Tarakim in the northwest province of Idlib in the afternoon on Saturday, according to the Idlib news group and the British-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. One video uploaded shortly after the incident showed panicked men carrying 2 children away from burning rubble as black smoke concealed the sky. Another showed residents dragging the bodies of adults by their clothes, their faces toward the ground. The videos appeared authentic and corresponded to Associated Press reporting on the event. One injured baby in a bright green playsuit screamed as a medic bandages his head. Another badly burned child was wheeled into what appeared to be a makeshift clinic, his charred hands frozen in position. In regional news, Libya's Electoral Commission announced the preliminary result from polls for an assembly to drop a new constitution, although 13 of 60 seats remain vacant after unrest in several areas stopped voting. The election to choose the body to draft a new constitution has been billed as a milestone in the country's transition from the 42-year dictatorship of Muammar Gaddafi, but failed to spark enthusiasm among voters. Political parties are still not officially represented at the vote, which was organized on the 20th of February, and only individuals were allowed to present themselves as candidates. Early results suggested liberal candidates did well in the capital Tripoli and the eastern city of Benghazi, which has been a hotbed of Islamist unrest since Gaddafi's ouster back in October of 2011. But the Electoral Commission said voting had not taken place in 93 out of some 1,600 stations because of the unrest and a boycott by minority groups in some areas. News around the world in brief. A group of knife-wielding men have attacked a train station in southwestern China, leaving at least 33 people dead and 130 injured, according to the official Xinhua news agency, which said making this one of the deadliest attacks in China in recent years. The incident, which happened at around 9 p.m. local time at Kunming Railway Station in Yunnan Province, was an organized, premeditated violent terrorist attack. Xinhua is reporting, citing authorities. They also said the attack was carried out by separatists from China for western region of Xinjiang. In Egypt, the trial of Mohamed Morsi and 14 others has been adjourned until Tuesday after bad weather prevented the ousted president from reaching the courthouse by helicopter, according to Ahram Online's reporter. Morsi, his presidential aides, and other senior Muslim Brotherhood leaders are accused of inciting the murder and torture of opposition protesters outside the presidential palace back in December of 2012. During Saturday's session, defense lawyers argued that there was no evidence of killing or any attempted murder. Now, the First Lady in the States, Michelle Obama, this week has marked the 4th anniversary of her Let's Move campaign, the nationwide initiative to combat childhood obesity in the United States. She announced new food nutrition labels to help people better understand how many calories they are eating, and new Agriculture Department rules that would reduce the marketing of less healthful foods in schools. U.S. President Barack Obama and Vice President Joe Biden have been jogging around the White House to show support for Michelle Obama's Move campaign. Take a look.
Man, you're hard to keep up with.
You just went out there. But after a good workout, got to drink up.
All right.
Otherwise, we're going to be in trouble with Jill and Michelle.
Just let Michelle know I did do it, Chris. All right?
Same time next week?
Same time next week.
All right.
It's finally here, Oscar night, and Hollywood's male stars are preparing to face off for one of cinema's most coveted prizes, Best Actor in a Leading Role at the Academy Awards. Actors Matthew McConaughey and Christian Bale both underwent extreme diets to achieve their individual roles, shocking audiences along the way. Actors Matthew McConaughey and his Dallas Buyers Club co-star Jared Leto are both preparing for their appearances at the Oscar. In their hotly tipped film, McConaughey plays an electrician and rodeo cowboy who is diagnosed with HIV. To achieve the look of an AIDS patient, the actor lost 47 pounds through a routine of extreme calorie restriction.
You've tested positive for HIV. Have you ever used intravenous drugs? Have you ever engaged in homosexual conduct?
Homo. You say homo? You made a mistake. That ain't me. Mr. Woodruff?
We estimate you have 30 days left.
Newsflash, y'all. There ain't nothing out there can kill Ron Woodruff in 30 days.
No, it wasn't. I mean, it was just responsibility to the guy. I mean, a lot of roles you get are non-specific. So why over choreograph it? Why go lose 30 pounds to play, a marketing advertising guy? Why, if it doesn't inform the truth of who the guy is, why do it? This one had a responsibility with it. I mean, the guy had HIV, and so it would have not been true, and you would have been looking at the film if I looked like I did now, going, hey, he doesn't look sick to me. It was probably easier, because once I started, well, your body on a cellular level changes and says, okay, we get it, we're going south. We're not asking for more food anymore. We understand you're not giving it to us, so we're going to quit asking, and you just do it. I had an amazing amount of energy, so I wasn't like, no one was holding me up, between takes. I had a lot of energy. I was felt on fire in that thing.
No, I'm thinking big. All right, this is going to be fantastic. We're doing video surveillance. I'm doing this from the feet up.
You will never do it properly because you got too much government attitude to be small and sleek. I'm like the Viet Cong, man, all right? I'm in and I'm out. I was there the whole time. You don't know it.
You treating these people?
I'm treating themselves. Well, I ain't selling drugs, I'm selling membership.
People believe what they want to believe because the guy who made this was so good that it's real to everybody.
The Oscar kicks off at 3 a.m. this morning, if you're able to stay up for it. And on that note, I will remind you of our headlines. Ukraine says it is calling up all military reservists after President Vladimir Putin resists Western pressure to pull troops back. In Lebanon, Hezbollah takes a swipe at President Michel Sleiman, saying the Lebanese leader requires specialized care. And Maronite Patriarch Shadadai is calling on rival political parties to swiftly draft the cabinet's ministerial policy statement. Those end up your week here on Future Television in Beirut. I'm Yumna Nofad, wishing you a great week ahead. Take care.